Hey, it's America's Supermom. Thank you for joining me on my podcast. This series is the Corona Chronicles. I created this so that we would have an outlet of positivity in the midst of a lot of negativity. You know what I'm talking about. All the news, the fear around this virus, how it can affect us, what the new normal is looking like, and how so many things have changed that a lot of people feel like um, it is the end of the world, so to speak. So, this podcast was created so that those of us who have hope, who are willing to move forward with this new normal and innovate new things that will help us to be creative and positive. That is what this platform is for us to come together and share that positivity and that light with those who may need it. So if you're interested in sharing your insight, please reach out because we can never have enough positive news. So sit back and enjoy the show.
I want to thank you guys for joining me today. I'm really excited about my next guest, Ana Ruiz. We actually connected through Facebook. And I'm excited because we were able to get on a brief Zoom call before this interview and just being able to have a dialogue about um, relationships and just moving forward and what how we can be positive during this time, when we're dealing with a lot of um, adversity just in the climate of the world right now, with it being the pandemic and racial tension and things like that. So it's just like a breath of fresh air to have someone that can give us some positive insight and how we can move forward. So at this time, I'm going to give Anna the opportunity to introduce herself before we get into the interview.
Yeah, hi Lachelle and hi everyone. I'm really excited to be here and to have the opportunity to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is relationships. So much about our life centers around relationships, and now more than ever, with everything that's happening in the world, our relationships can either be a source of support and strength, or they can be even one more reason why we're stressed out and have an impact on our health.
Mm-hmm. So true. So, what was it that really kind of got you really into relationships? Because it's something that, in many cases, you kind of have situations. Let's just take a family. You have that one family member that doesn't get along, and everybody's just like, oh, they're like that, and that's just how they are, and life goes on, and there really is no um, thought on trying to change them or do anything different. We just accept it and keep it moving. So, what was it that kind of prompted you to kind of dig a little deeper when it comes to relationships?
Yeah, so for me, that moment happened in my late 30s.
Mhm.
Um, I realized that I had a longing for a healthy long-term relationship.
Mhm.
And when I look back in my past, I had years and years of failed relationships.
Mhm.
And and I realized at that point that I was the common denominator,
Mm.
that I had a longing for a relationship. And the truth was, I never learned relationship skills or tools at home
Mhm.
or in school. So
Mhm.
so at that point, I started studying and became more and more fascinated with um, human psychology and learning about how relationships are complex. And
Mhm.
when we know the tools and the skills, it's actually it becomes a lot easier.
Mhm.
And I became a certified relationship coach, and
Mhm.
I currently work with couples and individuals who want to have thriving relationships.
Good. Okay, this is awesome. And I know where you're talking about because I actually experienced that same thing with my depression. I had these situations where I was hospitalized, and one day I just looked in the mirror and said, "Hey, you know what? I'm the common denominator." So I had to give up
Right.
having resentment for my husband or kids or blaming other people. I had to kind of take that step on my own. So, what are some key things that you could share with the audience about having a healthy relationship? Whether it's coworker, children to a parent, or spouse, to spouse, a sister to brother, that type of thing. What are some just key components for us to kind of hold on
Yeah, what a great question. I
to?
I'm thinking, how can I pretty much like distill everything that I learned on in a couple of suggestions that I can provide. And
Mhm.
I think I think for me, relationships start with myself.
Mhm.
Learning about myself and investing in my own growth.
Mhm.
And I imagine that in your journey, you had to do something similar, where
Mhm.
it's about taking the time to go inwards and really
Mhm.
like peel out um, what's going on for me and have an um, objective perspective into
Mhm.
myself.
Mhm.
I would also say that asking for help for me has been a major shift. Um,
Mhm.
you mentioned like relationships start with our family, our friends, and that was true for me. I had a very challenging relationship with my mom for most of my life until one day I signed up for therapy.
Mm.
And I really learned to see what was my part in our dynamic, and how
Mhm.
I had a set of expectations about my mom that were really not realistic.
Mm. Mhm.
Yeah, so for me, that brought a lot of healing into my life.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that. And that really also in my case I feel like that was the story for me with the expectations I had for myself. It was like I'm over here thinking I can do these impossible tasks,
Yes.
and beating myself up because I wasn't accomplishing it. So, what would you say would be, how do we kind of break away from these expectations? So like, is there some series of questions that we ask when we get into a relationship so that we kind of safeguard from these expectations?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've learned is that as humans, we have expectations.
Mhm.
Um, and oftentimes, what happens is we don't communicate those expectations to other people.
Mm.
And when we don't communicate them, there's not a shared reality. Um,
Right. Now that is
and
good.
right, exactly. And then
That
when
is
we don't,
big. Mhm.
and then when those expectations are not communicated, obviously they cannot be met.
Mhm.
And then we feel resentful.
Yes.
And
That's a real aha thing right now. Okay.
yeah, and yeah, and
Mhm.
when I step back and I can tell my partner, you know what, I own that I had an expectation
Mhm.
that you would call me tonight and I didn't tell you.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
what happens is that any blame that I could try to put on him, or
Mhm.
any resentment that he's not meeting my expectations, then shifts because I am taking responsibility.
Mm.
I can
That's
see
good.
where I can see where I had an opportunity to act and say something, and
Mhm.
instead I was passive about it and put it all on him.
Mm. That is so good. Now that's just a game changer right there because you know this is so true, and it goes back. I have 9 daughters, and so I always talk to them about um, watching people's actions more so than what they say because a lot of times you have friends that say, "Oh, we're best friends and everything," but they're doing things that you don't really appreciate. Their talk is not lining up with their walk. And
Right.
if we gravitate towards the things we want them to do and what we hear them saying, then we begin to discount or ignore the things that, like the warning signs. Like it's like, okay, they said that they valued my time, but they always show up late. So when they
Yeah.
show up late, we just ignore that, get angry, and we just say, you know what, this is a key tell that maybe they don't value your time. But instead of
Right.
having that dialogue, we just ignore it, and then till one day we blow up, you know?
Exactly. Yes.
So this is so key when you now. So I think part of it is why are people afraid to have these conversations to create this shared reality?
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I love that question because what I've learned is there are a couple of things. Sometimes people are afraid of conflict,
Mhm.
because they have never learned the tools to resolve conflict effectively. So
Mhm.
they see conflict as something that can create separation, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Rather than conflict as a way to be closer to the other person, to become more intimate.
Mhm.
That for me has been a huge shift. And I see this with the couples that I work, how they are so afraid of the distancing that they are used to experience when there's conflict, that
Mhm.
they'll rather not go there
Mhm.
without knowing that conflict can actually build intimacy if we learn the tools to repair conflict effectively.
Right.
And then there's another layer underneath. Most of us are afraid to be alone.
Mhm.
So we continue to avoid these confrontations because at the end, we don't want to be alone.
Mhm.
It's too painful.
Mhm. I love that. That is so true. Now, so how do we kind of reframe the reality that, and even by using the word conflict, you know what I mean? We just kind of have this thing to where, okay, if we don't agree or we're seeing something different, it's a conflict. But it just could be, perspective or, you know, um, evolving. We're evolving at
Yeah.
different rates or things like this. We can start using different words. But how do we um, openly begin to overcome some of these fears, where it comes
Yes.
to the conflict or the being alone.
Yeah. I think it starts with an understanding that conflicts and disagreements are a normal part of a relationship.
Mhm.
whether it's a romantic relationship with friends, with family. It's like most of us have a fantasy that if there is conflict, something is wrong, and that this
Mhm.
might not be the right relationship for me.
Mhm.
Versus we have to understand that conflict, disagreements, ruptures in connection are part of relationships.
Mhm.
And then when we can see that, I, for me, the next step is to see that, you know how we say it takes two to tango.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, the same happens in when there's conflict. Like each person has a part in it,
Mhm.
and oftentimes we don't want to see our part.
Mm.
So the next step is to look at what is my part,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
be able for like say to my partner, I felt hurt. And
Mhm.
when I feel hurt, I blame you.
Mhm.
So that level of vulnerability is what helps resolve conflicts.
Mhm.
Versus if I come to the table with my armor up, with my guard up, ready to blame him for what he didn't do.
Mhm. That is so true. And so I think it's that element of um, when you have that realization that we are in the middle of a conflict or whatever, and we do have two different sides of the story, so to speak, that we're looking at. You know, what is something that we can practice as individuals um, in looking to ourselves to begin to help us to be vulnerable? Because if you've never done the whole thing of like, hey, my feelings were hurt, you're so busy maybe defending or fighting your position or whatever, what do you do, or what kind of things do you practice to start that transformation to be more vulnerable?
Right. Yeah, I what you're asking is a very important step,
Mhm.
and that is in the heat of the moment
Mhm.
when we are still hurt, angry, we're either going to be reactive. Our nervous system is either going to want to fight or run away or
Mhm.
freeze.
Mhm.
And and that is a moment when it's really important that one person calls for a timeout
Mhm.
and says, "Let's have a timeout. Let's agree to come back and resolve this when we both have calmed down."
Mhm.
And make an agreement. Is it going to be an hour? Is it going to be 2 hours? How much
Mhm.
time do you need so that each person can take time apart to cool down, do whatever it is that they need? Maybe it's taking a walk, maybe it's
Mhm.
meditate, maybe it's journal, so that they can really calm down
Mhm.
and come back into conversation to we're in a place where they can be vulnerable, where they can see what was their part.
Mhm. I love that. And that's good. Great recommendation, but we have some people who maybe they've been in a relationship for years, and it's like this is the way we always do it, and we you know how it is. It's like you have this revelation that you need to do things different. But when you get into the actual plan of implementing that, you always get hung up on the same stuff. And later on
Yeah.
you go back and you're just like, I knew I shouldn't have did this. I shouldn't have said that or whatever, but I just couldn't stop it. So for most people, is it a good thing for them possibly to have a mediator or somebody, some things that they really can practically start using that can kind of get them on the road of moving in a different direction?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
That is like having someone from the outside
Mhm.
who can be the, I call it the referee, but
Mhm.
it's not quite the referee. It's, as you said, someone who's observing what's happening and who can help a couple um, rewire their nervous system so
Mhm.
that with practice they can call these timeouts on their own.
Mhm.
So a lot of the work that I do as a relationship coach with couples is exactly doing what you just said. Like,
Mm.
as I will have them sitting side by side, talking to each other in the middle of an argument, and where in the past it would have escalated
Mhm.
in a big way, I'm able to hold the space for both of them, call the timeouts when there's a need for timeout, get them to breathe, come back into conversation. If again they're down this path where I need to call another timeout, I will do that. And I
Mhm.
have couples that I've been doing this with them for months, and now they are able to call timeouts on their own. So
Mm.
they don't really need me there to be helping them anymore.
Mhm.
And as I said, it takes the nervous system time to rewire, to develop that capacity and that awareness.
I love that. And that is so true because this is the thing, just like everybody feels like if you're an entrepreneur, you can get rich quick, you know, for us to be able to have this realization that these things take time and to have patient, realistic expectations. So, as an individual, for somebody who is being proactive with their own personal development, getting the tools for themselves, which they can bring back to that relationship. What is something key, a daily routine or habits that help individuals get started with beginning to have that space for yourself so that if you have a disagreement, you're not kind of reacting in a way that you used to?
Yeah. One of the things that I've been doing for years that has really helped me is
Mhm.
have a have a meditation practice that
Mhm.
is centered on mindfulness.
Mhm.
And there's so many different kinds of meditations. There's some that are about movement and physical movement and walking. And but in particular, what has helped me the most is have a meditation practice that it's about mindfulness,
Mhm.
that it's about sitting with my own discomfort
Mhm.
so that I can stay connected with myself. And when both me and my partner are feeling activated, I can hold the space for myself, and I can also hold the space for him in his own discomfort.
Mm.
So I call it the practice of sitting in the fire with my own discomfort, my own activation.
Mm. That's good. Now, so I have grown to this space to where you understand the holding of the space, but for people who are listening and they're like, okay, what are they talking about? This holding of the space? What do they
Yeah.
mean by that? So can you explain that?
Yeah. And I think that the term I have heard so many I have heard different definitions of it. So I'm glad that you asked the question.
Mhm.
For me, being able to hold the space for myself means I'm having my feelings and I may have intense feelings,
Mhm.
and I know how to self-regulate myself
Mhm.
so that I can stay grounded
Mhm.
and anchored even with what's going on around me.
Mhm.
And to be able to do that, for example, with my partner, it means I am staying, I'm holding that anchor for myself,
Mhm.
and I can be an anchor for him uh, while he is having his own experience of activation, triggering
Mhm.
discomfort.
Mhm. That's good. So, when you're holding that space, what are some things that you do? Is it kind of like, um, you're breathing, or, you're not really acknowledging maybe some of the things they're saying? What are some practices that you do while you're holding that space?
Yeah. So breathing is the number one,
Mhm.
because that self-regulation that I was talking about,
Mhm.
what it requires is breathing so
Mhm.
that I can stay with the sensations that I'm having.
Mm.
And if I am with my partner, it requires being 120% present with him.
Mm.
So it's like zero distractions.
Mhm.
Some people respond really well to eye contact.
Mhm.
So keeping eye contact.
Mhm.
Some people need cues in the form of words. So being able to say, I'm here, I hear you,
Mhm.
I understand, tell me more, and
Mhm.
hold a curiosity for the other person.
Mhm. That's
And
excellent.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, those are the ones that come to mind. Some people like touch, sometimes holding my partner's
Mhm.
knee, like putting my hand on his knee or holding his hand. It's
Mhm.
another way of showing care, showing that I'm here, and it's part of holding the space for his experience.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah. So this definitely has been some great insight into that, because so many times we talk about having good relationships, and the things that we desire, but as you said, these are some of the things that we're not taught in school. So how are we supposed to know these things? So I think even that pressure we put on ourselves, because we expect ourselves to know things that we haven't learned you know
right.
so to have that space to be like, I don't know this, this is where I want to go, and have those dialogues are key. So what are some things that you do just to in your daily routine? You mentioned meditation, but just habits and things that you do, or maybe reading or something that keeps you more open to being able to be in a space to remain untouched, so to speak, sometimes with some conflict that can occur. I mean,
Yeah.
because you're practicing this daily with couples, and you have your own
Right.
situation. I mean, I know what you're saying, because I'm got 10 people
Yeah.
here in the house with me. But so what are some things you do to kind of stay grounded in that positivity?
Yeah. I think for me, the number one thing is self-care.
Mhm.
And I know self-care looks different for different people. For me, self-care means getting a good night's sleep,
Mhm.
um, having physical movement every day, whether I practice yoga, I go on a walk.
Mhm.
um, I I'm I need movement. I need that physical movement. And then there are things that are very nourishing to me, like working in my garden and
Mm.
growing vegetables. That is something that I enjoy very much.
Mhm.
And I have friendships that are support for me, that we support each other.
Mhm.
I used to be very independent and try to do everything on my own. And the older I get, the more I realized how important it is to have uh, friendships that are nurturing and that we
Mhm.
offer support and challenge for each other.
So
So
good.
yeah, those are some things that I do. I love cooking. I find cooking to be something
Mhm.
very creative.
Mhm.
So find ways to express my creativity.
That is
Yeah.
awesome. Well, this has just been some great insight, and definitely, I cannot believe the time is gone that quick because I can think of a million more questions. Okay, so we may have you come back, but in
Ah,
relationships, it's something that you can never have enough information about that. That's for sure. Okay.
yeah, and I would love to come back. And as I said at the beginning, this is one of my favorite topics of conversation. This is what I live and breathe every single day.
Yeah, and I think it's so important because, a lot of us kind of don't, it's just like you said, if you don't have the right tools, that really has an impact. That's crazy to go outside and think you can dig a garden with a spoon instead of a shovel. You know what I mean? And that's just
Yes,
some of the
yes.
stuff that we do, you know? And then we find
Mhm.
out later what's taking so long. Why is this not working? And just sometimes just transferring the right tool can make all the difference. So, I mean, I think this is really impactful. So, what is the best way for the audience to get a hold of you?
Yeah, well, the best way to reach me is on my website.
Mhm.
It's https colon // Ana Ruiz.life, and
Mhm.
that is spelled ANARUIZ.LIFE. So that's the best way
Okay.
to contact me.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time, and we're gonna have to get together so that you can come back again and share some more insight. Okay.
That will be wonderful. Thank you so much, Shell. I'm really appreciating the invitation and spending time with you today.
Oh, well, thank you so much, and I will be in touch with you soon. Okay.
Okay, thank
All
you and
right.
have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me on this episode. I really enjoy providing content that inspires and challenges us to be a better version of ourselves. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, please email me at info@lachelleatkins.com. You can also reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, or my YouTube channel. If there was something in this episode that resonated with you, it probably will resonate with someone else. So please share it. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. But those aha moments, those moments of really getting something and changing your perspective are very, very pivotal in having people change the trajectory of their lives. And so being able to share insightful information so that other people can grow is the easiest thing that we can do as we pay it forward. So again, I want to thank you all for listening. And if you have time, write out a review. Go to iTunes, Anchor, wherever you can find this podcast on any of those platforms and write a review about what impact this episode had on you, what you learned, or whatever. Any feedback is great because it just helps me to understand what content is really beneficial for those that are listening. So again, I want to thank you all for your support and taking the time to spend some time with me and my guests. And I wish you a wonderful day. Thanks for listening.